Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896. Breaking the rules. You may have heard the saying, some rules are meant to be broken. In 1890, a man named Homer Plessy broke the rules. The state of Louisiana had passed a separate car act, which required railway companies to have separate but equal train cars for black and white people. A person who sat in the wrong car had to pay a $25 fine or go to jail for 20 days. You can probably guess that cars for blacks weren't as nice as cars for whites. Not only that, it seemed unfair to make black people sit separately. A group of citizens called the Free People of Color in New Orleans formed a committee dedicated to repealing this law. They convinced Homer Plessy, who was 7/8 white and 1/8 black, to test the law by sitting in a whites-only car. When Plessy was asked to move, he refused and was arrested. The argument? Plessy argued that Louisiana's separate car act violated the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. It says that states may not deny any person within their jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. He argued that requiring black people to sit separately from white people implied that blacks were inferior to whites and therefore unequal. The Supreme Court disagreed. It saw separate train cars as an issue of social equality and not political or legal equality. It said separating the races did not take away social or political rights. Justice Brown wrote for the court saying that if one race be inferior to the other socially, the Constitution of the United States cannot put them upon the same plane. Justice Brown said there had been separate schools for blacks and whites for a very long time, and many court cases had decided that states were allowed to have these segregated schools. Out of the 9 justices, Justice Harlan was the only one to dissent or disagree. He wrote that our Constitution is colorblind and does not tolerate classes among citizens. He said courts' decisions would lead to racial hatred and increased attacks against black people's rights. So what? The court's decision set the stage for many more years of discrimination against people of color. Plessy's case gave rise to a new doctrine, separate but equal. States were free to pass laws that kept races separate, and although the facilities were supposed to be equal, they rarely were. The separate but equal doctrine would not be abolished until the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The issue is the Constitution. Is it the Constitution to make black people sit in a separate car? Let's read that again. Issue. Is it constitutional to make black people sit in a separate train car from white people? The decision? Yes, because the Constitution only protects legal equality, not social equality. So this is Plessy versus Ferguson. This is going to change within about 60 years when we have Brown versus Board of Education, which will be the next one that we read.